Welcome, and since it's already 11, 11:15, we will start. First of all, thank you for attending my talk. I'm from Spain, but I'm used to work in English and English environment, and it's going to be very difficult for me to do this talk in Spanish, so that's why I've chosen to do it in English. So what are we going to talk about today? We are going to talk about magic and how you can make work OKRs and Scrum together. And it's always a little bit tricky. It's not pure magic. There is some scientific way around it, but it also has its ups and downs. And usually it's not always magic. It can be love, it can be tears, it can be sweat, and but it has been fun, our ride. So I'm going to present the challenges of adopting OKRs in our Agile teams. Specifically, I'm going to speak about my team, the team I'm currently working on in Adevinta. I've been in Adevinta for 6 years. So we started using Hoshin methodologies in order to plan our sprints and our quarters, etc. And since 2015, we've been using OKRs. My team is a team of data engineers, so we are working with building pipelines, building dashboarding, and serving it to our internal clients, which is what led me to explain what is Adevinta. So Adevinta is a group that is a marketplaces specialist. So we are helping people buy and sell second-hand items. We are helping people finding a job. We are helping people finding a house. And here in Spain, we have very known brands as Fotocasa, Habitaclia, Mil Anuncios, or InfoJobs, but we are present in more than 16 countries around the world. So these are some of the brands that we have around the world. I've met some people from Colombia, so if you are from Colombia, you will recognize Finca Raíz, probably. If you come from the UK, you will know probably Spock. So we have a global services team between Barcelona and Paris, and this is where I work at. So my team, as I said, we are working with building data pipelines and dashboarding for some of these marketplaces, and I'm going to talk about how we have handled Scrum and OKRs together. If you want to know more actually about the agile transformation of our Spanish marketplaces, so Fotocasa, Habitaclia, Mil Anuncios, InfoJobs, Coches, Motos, the CEO of Adevinta Spain is going to give a talk after lunch today on how they have transformed the entire organization into an agile organization. So, what is actually the problem? Probably if you are in this conference, you know about a Scrum. As I said, we have been using a Scrum. We have been iterating on a Scrum for the past 6 years. We have a product backlog, we do sprint plannings, we do sprint backlog, we have daily Scrums, we have sprint reviews, retrospectives, etc. So nothing new here. What is probably new is objectives and key results. And this is something that you may or may not use today in your organization, but you probably have heard about and you want to know more. So this is not a talk about how to use OKRs and how to use objectives and key results. As I said, in our team and in our organization, we have been using OKRs for the past years. And probably we have done like 12 quarters of planning using OKRs, and we have learned a lot along the way. And here we want to go a step further. What we want to do is, okay, now that you are using OKRs, your senior management is convinced, your team is ready to take it to the next level. How do you integrate the OKR methodology with a Scrum? And I will refer to Pia talk about the permafrost layer. I'm a manager of a team. I'm part of the permafrost layer. And it can be done. We can use objectives and key results in our teams. And as a manager, I'm not an agile coach. As a manager, you can do that in your teams too. So just to summarize, objectives and key results is just goal setting a strategy. Usually, you can do it quarterly, but you can adapt. This is what worked for us. It was coined and invented in Intel, and then Google was starting to using it, and then kind of everyone else followed. So we have to say that objectives should be ambitious. The key results should be measurable, as a good goal is. A good thing is that they are public to the rest of the organization, and usually lower grades should be as something as data to iterate on the process itself. Usually, if you accomplish all your objectives in the quarter and you grade them as 100% accomplishment, it's been that you have not challenged your team, or your team has not challenged themselves enough, right? So when using objectives and key results, the sweet spot is between 60%, 70% accomplishment. And the last point is very important also. They should not be tied to employee evaluations or performance bonuses and this kind of stuff. So when you do that, you are in the risk of the teams going sideways and trick the OKRs and do things that are not good or healthy for the organization, because as Pia's mentioned also, like if you have a target, you will reach to that target despite, and if you have to kill the organization, you will kill the organization. So objectives should not be linked to bonuses, as an example. So an example of OKRs. So in our case, we are working with reporting, we are working with pipelining. So this is a suggestion of a template of OKRs for a specific team. In this case, it's my team. So first objective for a specific quarter is that we want to increase the global reporting usage. So here we can measure it in different ways. We can calculate different metrics and they can appear in different dashboards. We can increase the weekly active users for a specific dashboard, etc., etc. Or we want to launch an MVP of a email report that we want to have an open rate at the end of the quarter of some number. Okay. So you can start with these OKRs and then you should iterate and improve the methodology as you go. But we have explained a bit of a Scrum. We have introduced it. We have explained a bit of how it's what is the OKR methodology. But what are the challenges of making OKRs and Scrum work together? We have identified 3 of them. They should be labeled 1, 2, 3. Sorry. The first one is how do you manage maintenance tasks using OKRs. How OKRs translate into the actual work that you do in your teams, and how can you keep the big picture in your teams that are very focused on the Scrum methodology, the task, the user stories, etc. How can you keep the big picture for them? So let's go into more detail in each one of these. So the first of all, how to manage maintenance tasks. So in an ideal situation, when you start working with a project, and what the methodology says to us is that, well, everything is solved during a sprint planning, right? So you go to the sprint planning and you are clear on what is the highest priority task that you have to focus next, right? But when you are one sprint, 3 months, 6 months into development, you will have small requests from people. Can you change this? Can you change that? You will have on-the-fly requests. You will have tech debt that is accumulating. So how do you manage that in a sprint planning? It's going to end up being impossible to manage prioritization between new requests or new features that you have to develop in your product, small requests that you get on the fly that cannot wait 2 weeks or a month, and the tech debt that is accumulating in your product, in your development. So we have to take a step back, and when sprint plannings are not solving the prioritization problem, we have several options. So we can reduce the length of the sprints, right? So we do shorter sprints. If we were using 2-week sprints, we can do 1-week sprints. So we will do planning more often, and the request they will come to us, or people will be happier because we will solve them with more speed. We can try to use Kanban because maybe we can prioritize the request with the new features, with the tech debt, etc. But what really worked for us is the third point. Is what we call creating a fast lane and a tech lane. So what is a lane? A lane is like a subdivision that you do in your team. And this sub-team, let's call it, or this lane, what they are doing is focusing on a specific topic for a specific amount of time, and then you rotate. These people rotate in between lanes. So what is the fast lane? So the fast lane is a lane that can handle a small request, features, bugs that need to be executed quickly, etc. So this task should take less than a week to complete, and it acts as a buffer for the team, and it prevents interruptions caused by bug reports or any other unexpected event. The second point is the tech lane. So the tech lane is focusing on dev management and engineering roadmap. So this is dedicated to complex and deep technical topics that can last several weeks. So if we use lanes, we have something like this, where we have the main core development, the new features that we want to develop, which is this strategic lane that I will go in and explain in a minute. But also we split our team in between the fast lane and the tech lane. But what happened with OKRs in these lanes? So because OKRs are usually reflecting achievements, we tend to think about OKRs as something that is new, that we want, that OKRs serve the purpose of adding new things to the product, but they don't usually focus on technical depth management, or they don't usually focus to a small request handling. So you need to adapt your OKR process setting so that everything that you do in your team is part of an OKR, and this includes the fast and the tech lane. So an example of fast and tech lane OKRs are these. So if you need to reach an SLO, a service level objective, or an agreement, then you need to specify an objective of that. If you want pipelines to run faster, you need to do something, and then after that you need to measure the increase on this velocity, right? So it can be done. You can use OKRs for maintenance and technical dev tasks. It's just you have to change the culture in your team to reflect that. And one last important thing on this topic: if you accept maintenance tasks from other people, they need to be well written, and this will go a long way in your team. It's something that we have learned also. So you have to create a culture of accepting only well-written user stories for maintenance tasks and small requests. If the people get a request and the task is not, it's one line, you will have a very hard problem prioritizing this in your team. So let's switch to point number 2, how OKRs translate into actual work. And I give a hint already. It's all about the strategic lane. So the strategic lane focuses on work that provides the high-value product milestones, right? So all lanes depend on the size of the team, but in this case, the strategic lane can be split into different sub-strategic lanes, depending on the size of your team. So this will mark the capacity that you have to take requests and new work. So the work on the strategic lane usually takes a few weeks to develop. So let's see my recipe for you today on how OKRs translate into work. So first, you need a set of OKRs that you define quarterly, let's say. You need to be willing to have a fast lane, a tech lane, and one or more strategic lanes. And then, what are the directions? So first of all, you need to implement the fast and the tech lanes in your team. Okay? Otherwise, you will not have your strategic lane protected. Second point, you need to assign the highest priority key result to the sub-team that is working in the strategic lane. And this is very important, this is key. And final point, you need to let the strategic lane team members to work on the key result from start to end. No interruptions, no focusing on other key results, nothing. This is my recipe for you today. And this, we have iterated a lot on that, and multiple ways to form teams and to use key results and OKRs together with a Scrum. And we have seen that this is the best way that we work together. So, but what is the link between the key result and a Scrum? So we have said that we need to assign the highest priority key result to the strategic lane. But what is the key result? At what level are we talking about? Is this an epic? Is this a user story? Or is this a task? If your key result is an epic, it means that it's a large effort. It will have some user stories and it will have some tasks. And probably you need more than one person to focus on that. If your key result is a user story, it's medium effort. It will contain several tasks, and the work maybe can be parallelized. Finally, if you have key results that are tasks, it's a small effort, it's going to be quick, and maybe one person can accomplish that. So what is the sweet spot? So we've been in the situation of having key results as tasks that you get them from 0 to 100% in just one sprint. But we believe that for the size of our team and what has worked in our team is to assign key results to epics in a Jira board or the tool that you are using to manage priorities and tasks. So usually our key results are epics, and inside each of the epics you can have several tasks or several user stories. But where do things go wrong? We said that you need to pick the highest priority key result, but it's difficult to know which is the highest priority key result. Or if you don't have this very clear, the strategic lane will not be focusing on the work that is providing the highest value to the organization, to your product. If you start doing several key results at the same time, the team will lack focus. And then you will end up with an OKR, OKR list, where some progress has been done in a lot of key results, but actually none of them is finished. So you have to move this work into your next quarter and start planning again. Or worse, the work will be stopped and you will have a pile of technical debt in your system. And the third one is, if you don't implement first a process to handle small requests and technical debt, like the fast or the tech lanes, then a strategic lane is not protected against interruptions. Last point on how to keep the big picture. It's all about the role of line management. So the agile methodologies are not addressing the role of line management in all this. So what we have discussed and iterated upon when using OKRs and Scrum together is that line management needs to adapt the Scrum ceremonies that I showed before. Because we want to see the team members to actually see the forest, not only the trees that could be the user stories or the tasks. They need to know why they are doing what they are doing, why the team is focusing in this direction instead of going to another direction. So you need to modify your process or your behaviors. So it's useful to create a quarterly tracker for OKRs. So how does it look like? Probably there is tooling, there is things out there to do this better, but you can start with a spreadsheet. So here you can see objectives and key results, and probably what you can already see here is that we have too many key results already for a team that is 6-7 people. You have a key result backlog because if you remember, we said that we are working with key results being epics, so the backlog will list all the tasks and user stories. We are estimating the key result with a t-shirt effort estimation, so it can be small, medium, large, and we have a priority for each one of the key results. So this helps in the prioritization part. Here, as you can see, well, each color is a different objective, and each different objective we have assigned it to a sub-strategic lane. So we have multiple strategic lanes that can focus on different key results at the same time, and we have a priority for each key result inside an objective. So you would see several ones. There is priority number 1 in objective 1, 2, and 3. Then we are updating the status at the mid-quarter, and we have an end of the quarter status. And the rest of the columns are the tasks that have been accomplished by a sprint. And this is very manual. This is something that we haven't started doing this year, but it has worked well for us, and we are continuing using it in next quarters. But of course, you always have a second iteration on things. We have improved the process after some learnings, and as you can see here, we have less key results per objective. We have the same columns as we have had before, and we have added two new columns. First one is a status with a latest update date. So it doesn't work anymore for us to update at the middle of the quarter and at the end of the quarter. So we need to update this every sprint or every planning session or every retrospective, etc. And then we are adding also a confidence score of what will be the grade of the OKR at the end of the quarter, based on the information that we know today. And this is very important to communicate to your senior management also. So this is one of the first things that we have done to keep the big picture in the team. But of course, this is not something that your agile coach is only using or your manager is only using. You need to show it to the team. So you have to change things in your ceremonies. So what we have done in the changes that we have done them specifically in the refinement or in the grooming. So there is a small group of people that look at the tracker before the grooming meeting and decide which tasks will be groomed on the next refinement meeting based on the priorities, and we call this the pre-grooming meeting. Then during the next day, what we do is the tasks are fully written and we tag them in a pending grooming tag, and we share with the team as a pre-read. So they have to read this before going to the refinement meeting or before going to the grooming. This is done totally offline. And then after that, we have the grooming meeting, where the first thing that we do in the grooming meeting is to visualize the tracker. So we explain the tracker, we explain the situation where we are at, and then once we are finished with that, we start grooming the tasks. So other changes that we have done in other meetings is in the demo, we have the demo organized by lane. So each one of the lanes is doing a demo, even the tech and the strategic lane. This is for the retrospective, because we have done hundreds of retrospectives already. What we do is that each retrospective is organized by a different member of the team. This is not related to Scrum or OKRs specifically and how to blend them together, but I think it's a good way to approach retrospectives once you have done a lot of retrospectives within the same people in the same team. So we have had retrospectives with using songs or candy or Halloween thematic retrospectives, etc., which is fun for the team. So the planning is done by lane, sorry. So it's at the same time in the same meeting room, but because we have a well sorted grooming meeting, it's usually very fast. And also we keep a backlog for things to do in the next quarter. Final point on keeping the big picture is that you can always iterate on this. You might have a hypothesis on which change you can implement and what problem is this change trying to solve and which benefits will it have, and you can measure. But if you change the naming and the wording, if you say we are going to do an experiment for this quarter, then you don't need to hypothesize. You can say we are going to do this experiment, and it makes it okay to not know everything up front. It's okay to do that. It will help you be more creative and learn, and you don't need to create an hypothesis and measure the impact, etc. So now when we want to change something in the team, we say, okay, let's experiment, let's try for a sprint, let's try for a quarter, and we'll see how it goes. So to summarize, what have we learned? So we've learned that the fast and the tech lanes are very valid options to manage both the maintenance tasks for the fast lane and the technical debt, so for the tech lane. And this is probably one of the questions that you are wondering. No, it's like, well, but you need a lot of people to do this. Which size of the team you need to have in order to build and to separate in between the team to accomplish these two lanes, to have these two lanes? And the answer is that it's about the effort that you want to dedicate and that you need to dedicate to this. So usually you can dedicate the fast lane and the tech lanes a percentage of your effort, regardless of how many people do you have in the team. And because you will have people on holidays, you will have people on maternity leave, you will have people on paternity leave, and if you assign someone in the fast lane and it goes on holidays that quarter, what does it mean? That you will not accept requests from anyone at that time. So you need to adapt. So these are good methodologies, but you need to adapt also with the capacity that you have in your team and the number of requests that you get and the piece of development that you have. But if we can consider that we can call a group of people a team starting from 3, 4 people, then I would say that you can implement that even if the number of people in your team is that low. So the second point is that the strategic lane should focus on the highest priority key result. We have tried to, as I said, to put several people working on several key results at the same time, and it has not worked. You end up delivering less and you don't finish things. So you can create multiple lanes and multiple lanes can focus on different key results. But if you only have one strategic lane, my advice would be to focus on the highest priority key result. And once you finish this, go into the next one. And your engineers will be happier also because they will you will show them that they have the capacity to start and finish the work that they have been doing. Finally, you need to introduce and change your ceremonies to introduce OKRs. And please experiment with your teams. If you want to take something that I explained to you, you can tell your teams that you are going to do an experiment next sprint. Thanks. Do we have time for questions? Yeah. So if you have any questions.
Hey, how are you? I have a question about measuring the confidence of OKRs. You had this two new columns in the sheet.
Yeah.
Do you use a specific method and what is it?
Yes, so in order to measure confidence, confidence is within an interval. So, like for example, now we are more or less month towards the end of the quarter, Q4, and we cannot say if a specific key result is going to be 65 or 75 accomplished, or even 70 to 100. So what we have done, and this is the color coding, we have several grades, right? Usually the confidence is measured in between 0 to 20, so that's red, 21 to I think it's 69, something like this, and this is yellow, and then from 70 to 100, then it's green. So delivering confidence in between these intervals, it's already good enough, because if you know that a key result you are not going to start it before the end of the quarter, you can put already red. You don't have to overpromise to your product manager or to your organization. And they will find other ways to solve the problem, maybe. So that's what we do. For the yellow interval, you can be a little bit more accurate. It's not the same to put a confidence of 30 or 7 or 69 or 70. So in the yellow one, we maybe do some more betting, but which is usually an interval of confidence.
Hello. I think you said something about that you have the 3 lines and then you rotate. Yeah. So I wonder how you manage that rotation, because those that work on the fast lane, they're supposed to work fast. So if you have many projects, like in our case, it's different to have people that knows about all the projects and that are able to solve things quickly. So that will be a constraint. And then also that I guess that you will have to align the rotation with the sprints. And if you have different projects at the same time, you need to coordinate all the sprints. And yes.
Yeah. So usually we don't have different projects at the same time. So our team is very focused on a specific product about delivering pipelines and dashboarding. So in order to have a rotation, it's mandatory that every team member is able to do the same type of work and be at the same, more or less the same level of understanding of your products. Otherwise, you need to implement it, or whether either by product or I don't know. Maybe there are other solutions, but even if all the people are aware about the product and are able to do maintenance on it, etc., it's not easy, because you need to. One of the challenges that we have had is that if you focus on these strategic lanes, people tend to be very isolated on the key result that they are working, and they are not aware of what's going on in the rest of the team. So that's why we do groomings together. That's why we do the plannings together. One thing I didn't mention, but is that the grooming, we can have thematic grooming regarding one strategic lane, and all the people participate into this, because otherwise they will go their own way, and the rest will not be able to maintain that piece of code that later on. So yeah, if you do this, you need to focus on a specific project, and you need to make sure that everyone knows about the product, and it takes time. It's not easy.
I have found that usually people don't like to stay for so long in a lane which is not the strategic lane. So people usually get tired, if they are developing a product, of being in a tech lane, in a fast lane, or in a technical dev lane. So have you found any optimal rotation frequency so that people don't get tired of being in these lanes? Because usually they get tired. That's what I have found. Thank you.
So we are iterating on that, actually. It's a good point. What we are trying to do for the tech dev lane is to have something that is challenging or exciting. Like, for example, sometimes you have people that enjoys doing migration projects to a new technology that they don't know. So this for us, this is part of the tech lane. Of course, the challenging one is the fast lane. Here, people don't want to be there much time. So we change every quarter for sure. We wanted to experiment on shorter periods, like 6 weeks, something like that. There is a good book on that that's called Shape Up by people that's working in Basecamp. So they have a methodology around 6-week cycles of work. Yeah, so working on that. It's for at the moment it's quarterly, but depending on the key results, effort, it can be done sooner or not. Okay.
We don't have time for any other questions, sorry. And thank you very much, Xavier, for sharing with us all your knowledge. Please,
Thanks.